The Political Science Department at UNCG, and I'd like to welcome all of you to the campus, finally. The event today is co-sponsored with the Political Science Department and the Delta Sigma Theta sorority. And we worked long and hard to get this debate underway, given all of the changes to the mayor's election race. But we're so glad that you could all come out today and learn more about the candidates that we have for the city of Mayor and their goals and ambitions for Greensboro in the future. We look forward to a lively debate. And I would like to turn over the mic to Suzanne Morgan, who's the chapter president of the Delta Sigma sorority.
All over the country, events such as this are being held. This is a time for reflection. It's a time for minds and voices to be heard. It's a time for decisions to be made at the best qualified candidate. It's a time for action. Good afternoon. I'm Suzanne Morgan, president of the Greensboro Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Our sorority believes in action, social action, and political involvement. Welcome to this mayoral candidate debate in conjunction with News 2, Channel 2. We are very pleased to see so many of you here who are taking action. On behalf of over 300 politically involved members of our chapter, we welcome you. Sit, listen, question, think. The choice is yours. Welcome. Just to prove how politically involved our chapter is, we also have a member of our chapter who is looking at political involvement, and that's Linda R. Wilson, who is running for the City Council at large. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome again to this mayoral debate. My name is Folletta Donnell. I am the chair of the Social Action Committee for Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and my co-chair is none other than the fantastic Dr. Tara Green, who is a professor here at the university. So at this point in time, I'd like to introduce our fantastic moderators. They are Margaret Dudley. Attorney Margaret Dudley is a native of North Carolina and received both her graduate and law degrees from Howard University. Attorney Dudley was the third African-American woman to practice law in Guilford County. After many years of employment in various agencies, law firms, and even establishing her own firm, she was hired in 2017 by the Elon University School of Law as the first supervising attorney for its emergency legal services program that she still directs today. On April 15th of this year, Attorney Dudley will celebrate 55 years of membership in Delta Sigma Theta sorority. And she's 55 years and counting, and she still continues to this day to work eagerly to support many activities in Delta. Ben Briscoe is an award-winning anchor and investigative reporter who has helped change 17 state and federal laws. Ben started reporting almost 2 decades ago for a newspaper in his small Texas hometown. From there, he's worked in Amarillo, Dallas, Reno, and now the Triad is fortunate to have him. Ben hates sitting at home, so you'll probably run into him at different festivals, great restaurants, or working with volunteer groups. You can watch him on WFMY News 2, where he has interviewed everyone from Eric Trump to Joe Biden. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Margaret and Ben.
Thank you so much for everyone being here today. Let's start with an overview of our rules. The questions were written by members of the Greensboro alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and they were not shared with our candidates before now. Each candidate will get 2 minutes to answer. If the candidate wants to rebut a statement, that must be done during their 2-minute time period, or there will be a closing statement at the end of today's proceedings. The timekeeper right there in front of you will hold up a yellow card when you've got 30 seconds left, and then a red card when you must end your statement. And one more rule here, the candidates, you are welcome to take off your mask when you're speaking or during the whole debate. We ask that everyone in the audience please keep them on though.
Before the questions, each candidate may make an opening statement. Let's start with Attorney Cummings. Attorney Mark Cummings has served the people of North Carolina for almost 15 years, both as an attorney in private practice and as a district court judge. A native of Greensboro, Attorney Cummings graduated from James B. Dudley High School in 1999. After graduating from law school, Attorney Cummings became an associate attorney with Gray, Johnson, Blackman, Lee, and Dawson. In 2008, he founded the Cummings Legal Group, a criminal, civil, and estate law practice. Attorney Cummings continued this practice until successfully running for district court judge in 2016. On November 9th of 2016, the people of Guilford County elected him to the district court, where he served until returning to private practice in 2020. Attorney Cummings is a proud father of 2 daughters who are there in the audience. And Attorney Cummings, you may have 2 minutes for an opening statement, starting now, please.
Thank you so much, Attorney Dudley. First, let me start by thanking the amazing women of the alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Let me thank the University of North Carolina at Greensboro Political Science Department, and let me thank WFMY News 2 for hosting this event. Let me also thank each and every one of you in this audience who understands how important it is to be civically engaged and are here today on this beautiful Sunday afternoon, and to the thousands of people watching in the live streaming of this event. Welcome to y'all, and thank you for being here. My name is Mark Cummings, and I've been in Greensboro all of my life. I grew up here off of Phillips Avenue and English Street, and I went to Dudley High School and graduated in 1999. I am the product of a single parent. My mother is here in the audience. I am the product of a mother who determined that she was not going to let the fact that she was a single mother stop her son from having every opportunity necessary to be successful. A product of both the Section 8 and food stamp program and public schools. I understand what it is for families to struggle. Why I'm running for mayor is because the families who form the engine that is Greensboro, you are the ones that we do this for. You are the ones who deserve leadership that respects you, who understands what your issues are, and will work tirelessly every day to bring solutions. I'm an attorney, a litigator. I'm a problem solver. I solve problems. We have a lot of problems in Greensboro, but I am optimistic that together we can solve them together. Thank you so much, and I look forward to this debate.
Our next candidate is Councilman Justin Outling. He was raised in Western New York by his hardworking parents. And he says he followed his parents' lead, working to get into college at UNCG, and then again to be admitted to law school at Duke University. After years in New York City working at an international law firm, the councilman and his wife Cora returned to Greensboro in 2013. Mr. Outling currently serves on the Greensboro City Council representing District 3 since 2015. He is a partner with Brooks Pierce Law Firm and serves as the firm's Director of Diversity and Inclusion. Justin and his wife Cora are the proud parents of 2 children. Councilman Outling, your 2 minutes start now.
Well, thank you. My name is Justin Outling. I'm a member of Greensboro City Council and a candidate for mayor. The most important thing for you to know about me is that Greensboro is at the core of who I am as a person in every significant way. As was just explained, I met my wife Cora here at UNCG our freshman year in the dormitory right around the corner. We have 2 wonderful children, Clark and Clara, who attend elementary school at the Warnersville, in the Warnersville neighborhood at Jones Elementary. I have the privilege of now serving our community as a council person and working at one of the best law firms in the state of North Carolina after graduating and being a student of Professor McAvoy's, as well as attending Duke University. I know our community should be the best city in all of North Carolina. And when I say best, I mean better than Charlotte, better than Raleigh. We have wonderful colleges and universities, like this university, my alma mater, and my mother's alma mater in North Carolina, A&T. We have wonderful infrastructure, a city you can get from one end to the other in less than 20 minutes. You can't beat it, sir, you can't beat it. And a really high quality of life and a low cost of living. But Greensboro, quite frankly, hasn't been meeting its potential and has been falling behind its peers year after year after year. Whether it's seeing some of our largest corporations, whether it be VF or others, move to go elsewhere, whether you see the violent crime for the past 5 years, the worst in our city's history, year after year, I know as a sitting Greensboro City Council member, it takes effective leadership, not generally, but specifically in the mayor's position, because that's the position that has the bully pulpit and sets the agenda. That's the position that focuses on public transportation, affordable housing, and more jobs. And so I thank you for attending today and appreciate your engagement and look forward to hopefully earning your support.
Mr. Eric Robert is a partner and designer at QUB Studios and the owner of the Daily Bread Flour Mill just south of Union Square on South Elm Street. Mr. Robert has been involved for years in downtown revitalization projects. He was born in France, finished high school in West Africa, and came to Greensboro in 1986. He graduated with a Bachelor of Economics from UNCG and went on to grad school for an MBA at Elon University. Mr. Robert, your 2 minutes start now.
Thank you very much. I wish I could speak as eloquently as Justin, but so my name is Eric Robert, or Robert, depending on where you're from, and I've been a community advocate and designer in Greensboro for a while now. I have taken multiple abandoned and blighted buildings and evolved them and gave them new purpose. I see things a little bit differently than most. You know, I see things as they are and I see things as they could be. And when I think about what Greensboro could be, I get frustrated and excited at the same time. I'm frustrated because we're being geared to become like a gigantic Applebee's, you know, devoid of taste, or a Chattanooga or a Greenville wannabe, when I think that, you know, we should just put all our efforts in becoming the Greensboro that we could be. As I think we have a whole lot more to offer than just logistical qualities and the occasional golf tournament. So I am the underdog in this race, and the one great thing about America is that once in a while the underdog actually wins. So that would be like pretty refreshing. As a fairly new American, you know, I hold ourselves to higher standards, and I believe that Greensboro currently is being run like a third world country, where basically we have a lot of cronyism, a lot of corruption, and I think that, the constituency needs to actually know what its government is doing on its behalf. So if you are pro democracy, if you are pro, citizen involvement and open and transparent government, then I'm the guy.
Mayor Nancy Vaughan is the current mayor and has been since 2013. She was first elected to the city council in 1997 as the District 4 representative. Vaughan says as mayor, she has been a consensus builder, advocating for improvements in housing, jobs, and public safety. Vaughan was born in New Jersey, but grew ties with Greensboro when her dad took a job with the ACC in the 1980s. She is a licensed real estate broker with Allen Tate Realtors. She has 2 sons, 1 daughter, and 2 grandchildren. Mayor Vaughan, your 2 minutes start now.
Thank you very much. It is my pleasure to be here today. I want to thank the organizers, Delta Sigma Theta, UNCG, WFMY. I want to say hi to everybody who is watching online. I think it's a great opportunity. I just came back from a week trip to Israel last night, so I'm going on about 36 hours of no sleep. But it's so important to be here. I was one of 12 mayors chosen to attend this very important meeting in Israel, and we had the opportunity to talk to Israelis, Arabs, Palestinians, Bedouins, and it was a wonderful opportunity for me to go with my fellow mayors to talk about issues that they have in their cities. And actually, when we went to Israel, they had a lot of similar issues. So I just came back from an absolutely wonderful week. But I'm very happy to be here for the kickoff of this election season. I am your mayor, and I have been proudly your mayor for the last 8 years. Typically mayor is considered a part-time job. It's a part-time job throughout North Carolina. But to me, it is a full-time job. I am no longer working with Allen Tate because with all of the issues that we have here in the city, it requires a full-time focus. You need somebody who you can depend on to know that they are available for you day and night, 7 days a week. And that is something that you got from me. You saw it whether it was working at the tornado, where I was actually there on the ground at Peeler Rec Center for 2 weeks straight. COVID relief. This is not a part-time job. You need somebody who can focus on your needs as their greatest priority. And that is something that I am very proud to be, that I am your voice 24 hours a day, no matter what comes before council.
For our first question, we're going to start with Mr. Outling. During the pandemic, our city suffered record-breaking numbers of homicides. Other violent crime is also on the rise. What is your plan to make Greensboro safer?
In Greensboro, we've seen year after year a record amount of violent crime. Even before COVID, where other communities were going down or staying flat, Greensboro was skyrocketing to the top in all the worst ways. And we've all seen and experienced the bad consequences from waiting until crime becomes an inconvenient headline or something that spills out into neighborhoods with higher incomes. What I will not do with regard to crime and public safety is what the current mayor did in turning down a federal grant for hundreds of thousands of dollars for needed police equipment to score political points. What I won't do is characterize the record-shattering amount of crime as being something that's caused by small businesses and more specifically restaurants, which were closed during the most part of the pandemic. What I will do is attack crime as prevention and intervention. That is addressing the root causes, like implementing a program that provides a guarantee for children who are in areas of our community where they're more disproportionately likely to be involved in crime, but also make sure that we're intervening in the situation that exists now. Like when I led the council in increasing police pay in the police budget to make sure that they're where they're needed and where they're needed. It's an epidemic in Greensboro. Our city leaders must lead. It's easy to talk the talk, but it's important and more important to walk the walk. That includes funding the police, That includes funding programs that address crime at the root cause, and that's a leadership that I provided on the council, and will do even more as our community's next mayor.
Mr. Robert, what is your plan to make Greensboro safer?
My plan would be, first of all, not to do everything we've been doing so far. And I think that there is a need to rethink the way that we do things at all levels. And before the previous forum, I tried to get educated about various things. And when I research a particular topic, I don't just research, what Winston or Greenville's doing, but I go and try and research, what Barcelona and Paris and Copenhagen are doing. And unfortunately, there is no magic pill, to solve crime. But there is certainly a better idea of how to understand crime and understand what the root causes are. And, we are all under the assumption that, we need to militarize the police and send them into neighborhood. And ultimately, there is no such thing as a bad neighborhood. But there are such things as bad street segments. And if you look at, what various criminologists are talking about, 60% of most crime comes from 3 or 4% of the streets. So you don't need to deploy and besiege an entire community. What you need to do is to actually pinpoint what the crime is and go and address it right then and there. And the one thing that we've been finding out also is that when crime is removed, it doesn't get displaced. It is very much associated with that environment. So what I would say is that let's not do repeatedly what has been failing over and over. Let's definitely not blame bars and restaurants. And let's go ahead and try to be creative. And I think lateral thinking and creativity and a change of approach is what we must do now.
Ms. Vaughan, what is your plan to make Greensboro safer?
Thank you. I know that public safety is first and foremost in everybody's mind. We all want to be safe where we work, where we live, where we play. And that is something that is very important to me. And I've taken a lot of steps in order to do that. Our crime is high, but we've also had a 14% reduction from last year. I know we need to do better. When Mr. Outling proposed the pay increases for public safety, I thought it was something that was very important, needed to be done. Unfortunately, I had to go and clean up what fell short in his plan. And that was that he had left out long-standing people in GPD and our non-sworn officers. It left out a large segment. I worked very hard to get take-home cars passed for the city council. Took me 3 times to do it, but I was told by our police chief that it was something that really benefited the officers, the communities, and how quickly they could respond. I brought a number of things forward, like the Take Me Home program, which could help police interact with people on a better basis when they know in advance if somebody has a mental health or addiction problem when they go to that house. I was an early adopter of the co-response model. That is one of the biggest things that we can do when we go into homes, is to bring in mental health workers when we feel that there is an issue that isn't necessarily about crime. It's just people who are having difficulty coping that particular day. We can't look at crime specifically from a GPD issue. We have to include the community. We need to work with community organizations. We need to work with our religious institutions and our corporations. We are not going to police our way out of this, but I know how to bring the stakeholders to the table. And I have done that and will continue to do that.
Mr. Cummings, what is your plan to make Greensboro safer?
First of all, let's start by telling the truth to the people who live in Greensboro. There is a direct correlation between economic availability and mobility and increase in crime. Where you do not have economic opportunity, you're going to have increased crime. So first, let's start by attacking that. The funny thing about hearing the candidates up here talk, the ones who have already been in service, is they kind of talk about themselves in the third person. Mr. Outling says city leaders have failed the people of Greensboro, as if he's not one of the city leaders that have failed the people of Greensboro. He's been on city council. He's been on city council for 8 years. Mayor Vaughan has been on city council since 1997, and we still have those same problems. We need bold corrective action to address this from two distinct spheres. First, let's talk about why there is an inability to have effective community policing where it's needed. It is because we don't have the relationships with city activists who have a stake and know their neighborhoods better than police officers. What if we could build a relationship between the city activists who are out there on the front lines every day and the police officers who are there to protect and serve? What I would like to do is to take some of those buildings, some of those houses that are slated to be destroyed, renovate them and make them community safe zones, community resource zones where those community activists can work with community police to make sure that their neighborhoods are safe. Secondly, I want to increase economic investments in these problem areas. Madam Mayor talks about her trip that she just came back from Israel to talk about their issues. Well, Madam Mayor, when are you going to go to the south side of Greensboro to talk about the increase in crime? Mr. Allen, when are you going to go to the east side of Greensboro to talk about the divestment in businesses there? We need to have our city leaders in these neighborhoods
Sir,
making them strong.
your time is up. Thank you.
The next question will start with Mr. Robert. What do you think is the present state of race relations in Greensboro, and how might you improve it if necessary?
I think it'd be hard for it to be any worse, to be candid. You know, again, as a white man and a fairly new American, you know, the one thing that I'm realizing is that race is an issue in just about everything that touches us. You know, sometimes when there's a room full of specific people, you know, you end up hearing things and you realize that we haven't really evolved much. You know, we're still very much in the South, and you know, racism is still alive and well. So I think that the race relations are probably as bad as they probably could be, as nobody actually wants to have the conversation, the tough conversation. Nobody wants to remain at the table. Sometimes when the tough conversation began, you know, you have a very politically correct gesture, thank you for your time, and they just move on and nothing is resolved. So I think a lot of people have the, you know, not only the right to be angry, and I agree with them. I mean, I think that it's, there is a lot that is being said to appease and very little that is being done to actually improve the relations. You know, the events of last year is only just an illustration of just how bad, you know, everything is. So I think that to address that, first of all, you need to change the players at the table. You know, whether it's like the nonprofit or the illustre task force that always has, like, you know, a bunch of other nonprofit members and a bunch of really white guys. And it's really tough to talk race when you don't have, you know, all of the races at the table. So I think that, again, a lot is being done to give the illusion that something is being done when in fact there's really nothing that of value.
Ms. Vaughan?
Thank you. I do want to say, contrary to Mr. Cummings' assertion that I don't spend a lot of time in East Greensboro, there are many people who say I spend too much time on East Greensboro, just looking specifically at their issues. But you know, I know that when you've got an area that's hurting, that's where you need to be. That's where your presence has to be. We do bring stakeholders to the table on a regular basis. I am a liaison to the Committee on African American Disparities. I know that if we have a part in a part of our city that is hurting, then our whole entire city is hurting. When we put together the bond package that will be on the July referendum, we looked at things like affordable housing, public safety, and a wonderful Parks and Recreation package that will go into East Greensboro. When we go out and we try to bring employers into our community, we have come up with incentives that make sure that they're hiring from our community, but especially community and qualified census tracts, that they can actually get more money by hiring the people who need it. In addition to that, we know that people need skills and upskills. So part of our packages that I've been on the recruiting team for actually include training facilities where people from our community will be trained and upskilled for these jobs that are coming in. That's being paid for by the state of North Carolina, so it's not going to cost our residents anything. But it's a way to make sure that our residents are going to get those jobs. As we talk about root causes, we know that we have to do better when it comes to directing jobs into East Greensboro. We are looking at mass transit. Where these big job opportunities are, we'll be able to run shuttles. One of the places I went to in Israel was called Optibus, and it told us, it was really interesting because they showed how we can
Ms.
focus
Vaughan,
on cross-country
excuse me, your
routes.
time is up.
Sorry.
Thank you. Mr. Cummings,
Yes, ma'am.
your question?
On racial disparities. I'm sorry, on race relations.
What is the present state of race relations in Greensboro, and what, if anything, might you do to improve it if necessary?
This may be one of the most important questions that we tackle here, because all of us have saw what's going on in this country. Right now, a lot of people that are smarter than I, and I consider myself pretty smart, say that this country is closer than any time since the Civil War to having another Civil War. And why is that? Because we're more divided now than ever. I want to change that. And the way that you change that is deal with what the truth and the reality has been. Race relations, even in Greensboro, has not always been good. In fact, in 1979, over on Morningside Homes, there was a massacre that took the lives of several individuals that this city still, to this day, has not adequately grappled with and responded to. They've tried, and I do take my hat off to them for that. But the secret to dealing with race relations is, one, tell the truth. Two, understand that everybody, no matter their color, want the same things in life. Opportunities for themselves and their children, to provide for their children, to have the ability to provide a good life for their families. That is not different based upon if you're white or if you're black. But what is what your opportunities are if you are that color. This city has done 3 disparity studies at $300,000 a pop. And every time those private consulting firms that come to Greensboro and did those studies and gave recommendations, the council has refused to adopt the recommendations. Yet they continue to pay for them. Amen. Well, if you say to the citizens that you care about race relations, why do you keep on not paying attention, not accepting the recommendations that these disparity studies give you? It is time that we start what I call the One Greensboro approach. I'm sorry. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Outling?
Thank you. Race relations in Greensboro, like much of our country, it needs some serious work. What's perhaps most regrettable to me on the topic is that the city has contributed to making the gulf between members of our community wider and wider each year. That's in part from, as others have said, not being truthful and honest. You know, leadership is something that happens after the cameras are gone, after the photo opportunities are over. And it's important to really understand that. Even in June 2020, when much of our country was paying special attention to race issues, you had lots of elected officials, including the current mayor, say, here are some things that I support. I support President Obama's resolution on fair policing. I support 8 Can't Wait. I'm going to have a vote and take action on that topic. Now today, years later, there is still no action. Now where honesty makes a difference is if you don't support something, you don't support it. You can tell people that and have an honest dialogue with them. But if you're not being a leader and you're simply looking to appease them, you're never going to span that gulf that exists between members of our community. The reality is it takes leadership for there to be bold action. The mayor made reference to a policy where we provide additional incentives if a business locates in a qualified census tract. That's another way of unfortunately saying in an area that's predominantly black. I led and helped the city create that additional incentive. It's one thing to say that you support action, but it's important when you're the mayor that you actually lead on the action and make the change possible. Because not all of the positions are the same. It is the mayor's office that controls the agenda for the city and determines largely what's possible on the city council. I've led as a council person, and now I'm fighting to get an opportunity to serve you and lead as its mayor.
So among you all just now, there's been some disagreement on getting jobs for everyone in Greensboro. Let's go forward on that topic. With the Toyota plant and Boom Supersonic on the way, plus the Volvo headquarters expanding, Greensboro's economy is about to take off. How do we make sure that all workers of all educational levels get jobs and don't get left behind? We're going to start this one with Ms. Vaughan.
Thank you. And it's something that I touched on a little while ago. It was very important to us. I was on the negotiating team for Boom, for Toyota, for Publix, and for many others. And we wanted to make sure that people in our community were going to get hired. So we looked at a model on what we could do to make sure that people had the skills they needed to compete to get those jobs. So working with Guilford Technical College and Randolph Community College, we put together a program where there would actually be training facilities at these sites. As I said earlier, at no charge. I'm a little stunned that Mr. Outling just said that he led the charge on the extra incentives for people who live in qualified census tracts, because I believe it actually came from Sharon Hightower. And I supported that. When I look back at the meeting minutes, he actually didn't support it. You know, it's important as we're talking up here that we're being honest. You know, if you're running and you're running for a reason, just say what it is. But to me, making sure people have jobs was number one important to me. I didn't want people to come in from Toyota and Boom and bring their employees. I wanted to make sure that it was our employees who were going to be able to fill those jobs. I was able to vote on all those jobs. I was able to work for all those jobs. Mr. Outling had to recuse himself from those votes and everything else that's coming up because his attorney is working for Toyota or his attorney is working for Boom. You need somebody who is going to represent you every single day and not have to worry about if they were going to get crosswise with their employer. You are my employer, and you are always first in my mind.
All right. Mr. Cummings, your 2 minutes start now.
All right. The question is, well, who is the economy about to take off for? Boom says that by 2032, they hope to bring 2,400 jobs by 2032. So you're trying to tell me that the people of this wonderful city have to wait 10 years to get a possibility of 2,400 jobs. And even if they are able to come, how are the people that do not have adequate transportation going to get out to these facilities? You see, when the planning goes into these companies, it starts years before there's even they've agreed to come. And so the preparations for mass transit should have been done years before. In the 20-something years that Mayor Vaughan has been on the city council, or the 8 or 9 years that Mr. Outling has been on the city council, what have they done to ensure that when they bring these companies to the outskirts of town, the people in the middle, the people on the east side of Greensboro and the south side of Greensboro can get there to be employed by these companies? Not much. Another thing that I will stop is I think it is indefensible, the mass exodus of intellectual capital from this city every year at graduation. With 8 colleges and universities here, why is it that every year after graduation we have this mass exodus of all this intellectual capital? Because they don't see Greensboro as a place they can stay. The One Greensboro Initiative has developed a plan called the Learn Here, Earn Here initiative. That if you learn here, if you go to school here, and when you graduate, you determine that you're going to do a startup here, well, we're going to help you with that. We're going to invest in your startup programs to keep that intellectual capital here in Greensboro, creating jobs, bringing families, and strengthening the bonds between East and West Greensboro.
Mr. Outling, how do you make sure no one gets left behind in a growing economy?
When you talk about the jobs that have been recently announced in the pipeline for Toyota, for Boom, Supersonic, you're talking about regional jobs. That's another way of saying jobs that are just outside of the city. So if you're not doing the important work decades ahead of making sure that people from the city of Greensboro can make it outside of the city to those regional jobs, and that they actually have the skills and the training necessary to take advantage of those jobs, you're creating a situation where you have donut hole prosperity, where the city of Greensboro and inside of city limits is higher poverty with a ring of economic opportunity around it. And what it takes to make sure that we don't have that donut hole prosperity is it takes forward-looking leadership now, like with regard to the incentive policy, which certainly anyone can check the record and check the videos. I led on with another council member offered up an initiative to punish business. We came together and we decided we will incentivize it and make sure that those jobs, to the extent we can make it possible, come to the east side of Greensboro. Additionally, it's also important to understand that I'm a member of the Greensboro City Council as well as a lawyer, and I'm proud of the law firm for which I work. If there's a consequential matter in our region, our law firm is involved in it. And as someone who assisted Toyota in connection with coming to Randolph County and bringing jobs to our region, I know firsthand about the role as city council members and as otherwise that we had in that. And I will certainly tell you, while we can also always suggest that people were involved in bringing those jobs, there was an elected official in this community who knew that it was Toyota even 3 weeks before the company came. And I can tell you that 100% certainty. So it's important to, in fact, be honest about the state of things. It's important, in fact, to be honest about our role in bringing things to our community, because it takes that honesty and that leadership to do right by all of our community, especially those in East Greensboro.
Mr. Robert.
Well, based on Mr. Outling and Mr. Cummings' answers, I think that maybe they took a peek at my notes while we were in the room like that, because we all have a lot of things in common. You know, the one thing that they haven't said that I could say is that Greensboro has a tendency of being reactive in just about every issue instead of being proactive. And like both of them have said, you know, we've known, I mean, we've built the mega site. The mega site has been on the books for close to 10 years. So we knew, you know, at least the aspiration was to attract some major industry, whether it was going to be automotive or aviation related. So we knew it was coming. And we also knew that, you know, eventually, if we wanted to benefit from it, we would have had to create, you know, some corridor and some sort of transportation plan to bring people to not only the training and the education, but also to the job site, and then bringing them back. So to date, I don't know of any plans. But again, you know, that is the difference where we could have been proactive from the beginning, knowing that it was coming, because we certainly didn't take us by surprise. The other big difference is that I think people misunderstand the terms economic development versus economic growth. And you know, if we say we're going to have like some great economic development, inevitably you're already not including everybody, because economic development only benefits a few people, versus economic growth that actually, you know, the whole community actually grows and gets uplifted at the same time. So I think it's important to make that distinction when it comes to jobs.
With a booming economy come more people and more strain on our already limited housing supply. Rents are going up. It's hard to find a house to buy. What is your plan to provide housing for lower income and middle income residents? Mr. Cummings?
All right, thank you for that. Thank you for that question. I don't want the misconception that individuals who have worked hard, that have played by the rules, are asking for a handout, because they're not. They're asking just to be treated fair and to have every opportunity that others in this great city have. And housing is one of the most important, because that is the main mechanism by which a lot of minorities pass wealth, because there is wealth in real estate. Now, how can we ensure that the ability to pass that wealth is available for all individuals? One, it's not just about providing low-cost housing. It's about providing quality, affordable housing. It's about providing safe neighborhoods. It's about providing great schools in those neighborhoods. The One Greensboro initiative will look at what is the current status of neighborhoods that have majority renters as opposed to homeowners. Obviously, when you have a situation where a lot of the individuals are renters, you don't have that same type of focus on property upkeep and maintenance. Well, what if there was a partnership between the homeowners and the cities to ensure a basic minimum standard that these houses have to be in, and controls to keep prices from increasing? There was a news article recently about our elderly citizens who have done everything right, now wondering where they're going to live because they can't afford it. That is morally reprehensible. When I am mayor, that is not going to happen. If you have worked hard in this city, if you have contributed to its upkeep, we're going to make sure that you have great, affordable, high-quality housing.
Mr. Outling?
I care deeply about housing, and for me, it's really personal. As a young child, my father, like many people in our community, had a good manufacturing job, and then suddenly, with shifts in the economy and otherwise, that job disappeared. And so I know the anxiety that a family feels when it seems like there's more bill at the end of the month than there is money, and you're wondering where you're going to be housed next week, next month, next year. And in my time on the city council, I've led on housing. I was the former chair of our Minimum Housing Standards Commission, and recognized that far too often when a home that otherwise could be good affordable housing exists, people are unable or unwilling to make the repairs to their property. And so I led the council in creating a third way where the city can make repairs directly to those properties. And that's something that has resulted in dozens and dozens of more affordable housing at Avalon, Trace, and elsewhere just from enacting the policy. Because the banks were scared of losing their position if a property was sold or the owner went bankrupt, and then the bad property owner sold it to someone who would maintain it. But it's not enough, and we need greater leadership to realize the full vision of initiatives like that. Rather than just enacting the ordinance as a persuasive tool, actually putting in the funds and support to make the repairs directly to those properties to keep them affordable. And also provide leadership that treats everyone the same. And if there's a slumlord, like there's a family of slumlords named the Agapians, who mine human misery through their properties, not settling a lawsuit with them for pennies on the dollar. It takes leadership, it takes deeds. I've shown that as a council person, and with the position of the mayor, I'll use the influence of that office to do even more good.
Mr. Robert?
It's becoming a theme, but again, when it comes to affordable housing, I think that we need to rethink the approach, and for that, we need some creative and lateral thinking. The housing today, the housing need today is very different than the housing from even 10 years ago. And yet we have a planning and zoning department which is really antiquated, along with rules and ordinances that are antiquated. And basically we're a two-trick pony. It's either single family residential or some gigantic, really ugly multiplex. And I think, we're missing out everything in the middle. We're missing out the accessory dwelling and the micro units and the grandparenting residences. But I think also what we're missing out, again, is a creative approach in rethinking affordable housing. I was driving around Greensboro, and every single element that is considered affordable housing is horrible. I mean, it's in a horrible part of town, and it's poorly built, and most likely, the people living in it, like Justin was saying, are being preyed upon. So I think that, what I'd love to see is that wouldn't it be great if we could actually have affordable housing that looks better than, some of the luxury condos that were not being created around town. And this is completely doable because all it takes is a little bit of creativity. Because with creativity, you can achieve just about anything. So you can rethink housing altogether, and you can create something that is actually so attractive that doesn't look that, you have no other option but to live there. So I think, again, lateral thinking and creative and the revamping of the zoning and planning department would go a long way in solving the current and upcoming crisis.
Ms. Vaughan?
Thank you. And just a second off topic, I knew it was Toyota for months because I was meeting with them. Regarding affordable housing, I believe that is our #1 crisis, that people need safe, affordable housing. Mr. Cummings alluded to the story that is coming out about the elderly people in New Garden Manor who the rent is being doubled. We see that across the country, and there's really nothing we can do about somebody with greed. I reached out to our city attorney to see what can we do about capping rents. And he said to me that our legislature has taken any ability away to cap rents. We did a 10-year housing plan. It's a good housing plan. It talks about how to get people at all different price ranges into affordable housing. But we need to pass the bond that'll be on the July ballot in order for us to implement it. We know that people are really suffering when it comes to housing. Just last week, at one day, there were only 80 houses on the market in the city of Greensboro. When we talk about affordable housing, it really is across the board. One of the biggest things we can do that I believe in is down payment assistance. It is a wonderful program that helped first-time home builder buyers have a down payment that they were forgiven within 5 years. It helped them build generational wealth. I want to expand that program. That'll be part of this bond. $10,000 isn't enough at this point for people to be able to enter this housing market. So I believe we have to raise that. We have had some beautiful affordable housing units, just like the one at Printworks. We have the ability. We have been putting people into houses, but we know that we need more. That is the problem. It is the quantity.
The last question is perhaps the most straightforward. Why are you the best person for the job? Why should you get our vote? Let's start with Mr. Outling.
It's really a privilege to get an opportunity to earn your support. I'm well positioned to help lead our community into the future and close the gap between its potential and its reality. First and foremost, it's because I care. In my life experience that's brought me here, someone from a working class background with a father who was a garbage man until he retired a few weeks ago, was a bus driver, and the son of a social worker as well. Someone that really busted their rear end to get through UNC Greensboro, as well as attend law school at Duke University. And hopefully someone will give me a tear and a little bit of pity after what happened last night against the Tar Heels. It hurts really, really bad. But also someone who finds a way to get things done to move our community forward. A moment ago, we were just talking about affordable housing and about how we can't do things because the city attorney said that we can't do them. As a lawyer, I will tell you, that's what we do, is we find solutions to difficult problems. At one point, before I joined the city council, we were also told that we couldn't find a way to release body-worn camera footage of police officers. And I work with our city attorney, not talking about we need to do this, but literally looking at the law and finding a way out of what others said there was no way. The same with regard to incentivizing and giving priority to our local businesses in certain contracts with the city. For decades, elected officials wanted to do it. They talked to folks who said it couldn't be done, but it took someone with know-how and experience to actually figure out a way out of no way. And that's the talents that I brought as a city council person, That's something that I would love to do if I have the privilege of being your next mayor. Because we have a lot of talented council persons, we have a lot of talented administrators, we have lots of talented students, but it's like a football team. If you don't have a great quarterback, you're not going to be successful. Now, if you have a great quarterback, it doesn't mean you're going to be successful, but it's necessary. And again, thank you for your time, and I hope you earn your support. Justin Outling for mayor.
Mr. Robert, why should people vote for you?
You know, most good people want absolutely nothing to do with politics, probably for all the right reasons. I didn't want to have anything to do with politics, and yet here I am. I mentioned earlier, you know, about us being governed like a third world country, and I still stand by it because I believe that is the case. I think our government has been hijacked by the few that are actually connected, and a lot of the other constituents, you know, are just like not even eating cake, but just eating the crumbs. And I think, you know, that it's time, you know, to give the government back to the people. I think that the constituency need to know what its government is doing on its behalf. I think that, you know, every single one of Greensboro citizens should have the same voice as the one, you know, that contribute to campaign. So, you know, the best example I can tell you on how bad it's become is that a few weeks ago, you know, we had to organize in a frenzy within 4 days to actually try to promote a grocery store to come to downtown Greensboro in the middle of a food desert that would have served, you know, historically underserved community. And we had to fight our elected officials because at the time they were all only too happy to put a parking lot for one of their main campaign donors. So if that is not alarming to every single citizen, it should be, because that was really outrageous. So that is why one of the reasons why, you know, I'm keeping mine either way, and I'll be fine whether I get your vote or not. But I think that we would be missing an opportunity to actually make Greensboro a whole lot better for all of its constituency, not just the few connected ones.
Ms. Vaughan, why should people
Thank you.
re-elect you?
You know, I have a proven track record of success. I have been out on the streets working with people. You know, in the last 4 years, we've had some of the biggest issues we have ever had in this city. We had a tornado. There's not a lot of people up here have talked about the tornado and the people who are still suffering from it. We've had a pandemic, something that we and the rest of the country have had to face. But I took a leadership role on pandemic and recovery, making sure that we had vaccines, making sure that people in our community, we have a very strong immigrant and refugee community, that we were reaching out to them in using people within their community in their primary voice so they knew what had to be done. We helped businesses who were hurting during the pandemic. We are now seeing a rebound. We know that the city of Greensboro is going to be a great place and is a great place for people to look at who want to get out of the urban community where they were living in. And they see the wonderful assets here in the city of Greensboro, things that have my fingerprints all over it, whether it is the Tanger Center or the Aquatic Center, and all of the issues here that are so important for our city. Not only did we have that, we had civil unrest. I was the one working with community activists. I know them. I speak to them. We talk on the phone. We know that this is a difficult issue, but I have been in the game. When we had a meeting at Windsor Center talking about violence and what we were going to do, all of the council people spoke about what we could do and how we could work together, except one. And he is sitting here at this table. You know, it takes leadership. It takes more than just talking about it.
Mr. Cummings.
Why should I get your vote? Well, because I'm the candidate of inclusion. I'll make this promise right now. When I'm your mayor, there'll be a job for each one of these 3 individuals in our administration. But the reason you should elect us, Mayor, is, they say that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing but expecting a different result. How many times are we going to keep on electing the same people and expecting a different result? Maya Angelou said, when someone tells you who they are the first time, believe them. These individuals have had 23 and 9 years respectively to tell you, to show you who they are. Believe them. We have seen that the east side and the south side of Greensboro has been abandoned. We have seen that the children growing up over there have been abandoned. There is a makeshift memorial right now at the municipal building that was put up there by Mothers Against Gun Violence. That is a replica, that is a picture of every child that has been killed by gun violence. Where is the meeting with the Mothers Against Gun Violence? Where is the meeting with the fathers and mothers who have had to bury children? I am asking for your vote because it's time to stop marching. It's time to get to work. Amen. I am the can-do candidate. I am the problem-solving candidate. I am the candidate that believes together there is no problem too great that we can't conquer. I'm asking for your vote because I believe in Greensboro. I believe in you. I have skin in the game. My daughters are growing up here. I want to make sure that they have a home that's good to them, just like Greensboro has been good to me. Thank you so much.
Each candidate will now have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. Mr. Rivera, you're up first.
Well, I'm not sure how often Sesame Street is being quoted in a political debate, but from everything you've seen and heard so far, it's pretty clear that one of these candidates is not like the others. You've heard me talk a lot about lateral thinking and creative thinking, and those are not just words. I mean, they're critical. They're critical to our ongoing competitiveness, evolution, and quite honestly, survival. Without such thinking, we wouldn't be talking about boom supersonic. We'd be talking about the Wright brothers. So I think it's really important for us to understand that innovation, creativity, and lateral thinking work. I think throughout history, it's been proven over and again, any medical advancement, any kind of great progress was created by lateral thinkers. People that decided that, the wheel was great, but maybe we could improve upon the steam engine. Maybe we could have an electric battery that would power a car. So that being said, the one thing you won't see me do is like pose with kitten or with my black friends or with my Latino friend, just to pander. I think that the one thing you will see me do is advocate for compassion, humanity, equity, social justice. I think it's Jefferson that said that, we get the government we deserve because we get the government that we elect. And in this case, it's more true than ever. And I think right now, right here, we have a tremendous opportunity. You have one candidate who's not a politician, who's not taking campaign donation, who actually doesn't owe any favors to anyone, and who really wants to do this for all the right reasons. Now imagine if someone like me actually was to get elected against the political machine. Imagine what that would do for, the hope of everybody else who's already, disengaged and believe that the system is rigged. So.
Yeah.
Ms. Vaughan?
Thank you. And I want to thank everybody for coming out today. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon. I know that you had other things to do, but I appreciate that you came to sit and listen to us, and I hope we'll have additional conversations as we mull around this afternoon. First, I do want to mention, Mr. Cummings, I actually took 8 years off. I have not served that full time. I took time off when my daughter was born. And Mr. Cummings, you also mentioned Mothers Standing Against Gun Violence. I'd love to introduce you to them. I walk with them about 6 months out of the year, every Wednesday. It's important not to just throw things out. It is important to actually have made those connections, and I've done that. Today, I spoke to a gentleman who is starting another group, and it's called Mad Dads. And they're fathers who have lost children, who want to be just as active as the mothers. You know, when you're running for mayor and you are the mayor, it's obvious that everybody has to say how bad everything is. But you know what? We live here. We know that there are a lot of good things about Greensboro, and that we have seen that Greensboro is making the turn, that we are changing, that we know that people are going to get the jobs that they deserve. You know, we got the Boom and the Publix, and you know, we announced a number of jobs just in the last 120 days, over $2 billion worth of investment. That didn't come overnight. That came because we were putting the infrastructure in place. We made sure we had workforce development in place. You know, it's not like, come here, we'll solve everything, just trust us. No, they have to know that you've got a plan in place. And we did. We did because of the leadership that I have shown over the years and the way that I have been able to work with our council. Thank you.
Mr. Cummings?
Thank you. First, let me thank you again for being here today at this very important, critical gathering of four individuals who hope to lead you into the future. I'm asking you to vote Mark Cummings for mayor. I'm asking you to do that because this is the most important election of your lifetime. And I know that that's been said a lot before, but when you turn on the television, you see right now what we're up against. Whether it's the war that's going over in Ukraine, or the fact that we still have people fighting for freedom right here at home in Greensboro. I want to continue that fight, but I want to win. I want to be successful at it. You know, Dr. King said that on some positions, cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but one must take that position because it's right. As a district court judge, I took positions that I thought were consciously right. I'll do that same thing as your mayor, working every day for all people in this wonderful community. Now, let me take a moment in the last 30 seconds to speak directly to the children over there on the east side and the south side of Greensboro. I proudly stand here today with Mr. Outling. Obviously, we are two African-American males. The conventional wisdom is that we are absent from our families, that we are on the street selling drugs, that we are not engaged in providing for our communities. I hope you see from this example that that is far from the truth, and you can take solace in knowing that we're setting an example for you. Help is on the way.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings.
Thank you. Vote Mark Cummings for mayor.
Mr. Outling?
Thank you. To paraphrase Mr. Cummings, he said something to the effect, when someone tells you who you are, who they are, believe them. Respectfully, I think it should be when someone shows you who they are, believe them. My acts as a city council member speak for me. You can go on my website, voteoutling.com, click accomplishments, and see an example of the things that I have led on. As a city council member, you take thousands of votes, and as a result, you have your fingerprints on everything. I have my fingerprints on the Tanger Center. The Tanger Center would have happened even if I weren't here. I have my fingerprints as a council member on Toyota. Toyota would be here even if I were not here, although I made a meaningful contribution. Bryan Foundation led with regard to Toyota. Toyota wouldn't be there without the Bryan Foundation. That's leadership. Tanger Center wouldn't be here without former Mayor Robbie Perkins, as well as Kathy Manning and others. That's real leadership. That's the type of leadership that I provided on the most important topics in our community during my time on council. Whether it's on affordable housing, whether it's on economic development and eliminating red tape and providing for more jobs in our community. And so I respectfully ask for your vote. I respectfully ask for you to demand more than just symbolism. We need symbolism, but it can't be devoid without substance. And I encourage you to go to voteoutling.com to learn more about our campaign and the change that we'll help bring to Greensboro to close the gap between our potential and our reality. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our candidates for making time today. I appreciate each of you following the rules so dutifully. Thank you. And if you're watching this at home and you missed any of it, you can see the whole video of this from start to finish on WFMY News 2's YouTube page. Most importantly of all, thank you for being here, and don't forget to vote.
Thank you.